Yo, this is P-Town's finest, representing the NEP, D. Stoudemire, and y'all know what we talking about. No one's ready to deal with us.
This is the hardcore blazing stuff, yo. Hard took the call, yo. Straight playoff stuff.
This is Evan Turner and your Portland Trailblazers, and you're listening to the Rip City Report with Casey Holdahl and Joe Freeman.
Trailblazers, y'all. Beat nuts, y'all. No escape, y'all.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of the Rip City Report. I am Joe Freeman, the Oregonian. He is Casey Holdahl of Trailblazers.com.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Casey.
Welcome to Atlanta.
How are you?
The players play.
Hot Atlanta. But that's not very hot.
Yeah.
It's like 50 degrees.
Yeah,
49 degrees.
It's gotten warmer since I left this morning. But yeah, I was walking to Waffle House and I was talking on the phone with my wife, and yeah, my hand was like, I was like, hey, I gotta get off the phone. It's too cold to have my hand holding this phone up because
It's like Chicago cold.
It's cold. So after being in Phoenix where it was 90 degrees, and San Antonio where it wasn't super nice in San Antonio, but it was still probably about 70. A little shock to the system, though. I don't mind. You know how Casey is with my Norse blood. I prefer the cooler weather to the warm weather. So
I don't come to Atlanta for cold. I want it to be warm.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's right in the name of the nickname. So I mean, for it to not, I guess climate change.
True that.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're in
Atlanta.
This is our third stop on the trip?
Third stop on the last real road trip of the season.
Yeah. Actually, fourth stop.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Fourth stop. Phoenix, New Orleans, San Antonio.
I totally forgot we were in New Orleans already.
Which
probably,
Orleans.
with the way that game went, probably not a bad idea to just forget that it ever happened. But yeah,
I don't know. The Tankers liked it.
Yeah. Well, that game, I don't think the Tankers liked that game that much.
Because it wasn't entertaining and they just
exactly.
got smoked.
Like, that was, I think the Tankers want a good game that you lose at the end. So I guess maybe, I don't know if I would consider the Wizards game a good game that you lose at the end. But basically, yeah, I think they would rather see a good game and then a loss rather than just an awful game, which that game against New Orleans was, and also a loss.
It's pretty easy to turn off the TV when you're down 30, though.
That's
25.
True. Yeah.
Bye.
And, to be fair, for me, it's easy to recap a game when you're down 32 because I got my crappy post written up almost entirely halfway through the fourth quarter and
Call it good,
put in the final score, and head to the locker room and head to the bus.
Do you think that the Tankers have slowly started to change their mind, like kind of get on board, or do you think they're still all in on the tank?
I think it's, I don't think anyone's opinions are necessarily hard and fast, but no, I think that for the most part, if you want to see the team, get a higher draft pick, I think you're probably sticking to it at this point, and I think the people that want to see the team make the playoffs are kind of the same way. Now, I will say, I felt like we were starting to reach a tipping point after that New Orleans game to where if they had lost versus the Spurs, which I think we all kind of expected them to, obviously they didn't, but if they had lost that game and then say they lose to Atlanta and then you finish off with the Heat and maybe lose that game as well. Basically what I'm trying to get around to is they had finished this trip with 4 losses in a row. I think maybe at that point it's
call the dogs.
Even the playoff folks are like, hey, let's pull the cord here. So, but winning that, I think, to your point, winning that game versus the Spurs maybe kept some of the playoff people from switching over to the tank side, but I don't think that. I think the Tankers are there to stay at this point. Is what I'm saying.
We're sort of in this interesting middle ground right now, where it really genuinely could go either way.
Yeah.
Because 15 games left.
Mm-hmm.
The Blazers are what? 2 games behind the Denver Nuggets right now for the last playoff spot. 1 game ahead of the Dallas Mavericks, who are in 10th place, and there's kind of 4, 5, 6 teams right there still mathematically in it. And we're going to talk about this later, but the last 2 games have just perfectly summed up this team and this season, where night to night you really don't know what you're going to get, and it's almost like flip a coin. You get the Tankers rejoicing one night and the playoff pushers rejoicing the next.
A coin flip is easier to predict, I think, than,
That's true.
than the Trailblazers.
That's true.
But yeah, no, you're exactly right, Joe. It has been in it's just the way the season has been. Is they lose games that you can't figure out how they possibly lose them, and then they win games that
Like last night, you're like, wait,
confusing.
what?
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's, and I mentioned that to Brandon Sprague, actually. He works for 1080. We were talking a little bit on Twitter last night, and that's that's a sign of a young team. And the Blazers are the second youngest team in the NBA.
Youngest.
Oh, they are the youngest. Okay. Well, that would make sense.
When they traded Mason Plumlee for Nurkic, they got younger.
Okay.
They passed Phoenix and Philadelphia as the youngest team in the NBA.
Gotcha. So to be fair, while it's not an excuse, and you would prefer that a team of professionals maybe not be as susceptible to the fluctuations that they happen this season, a young team having a awful effort one night, and really effort probably is not even the right way to put it.
Performance.
I don't think their effort was bad in New Orleans. They were just bad, and then turning around and having a good performance the next night. I mean, that's a young team. That's what young teams do. Is they're inconsistent. Yeah.
Well, we do appreciate you listening, as always. We are coming to you from Atlanta, as we mentioned. Blazers are in the tail end of a 5-game trip. They're 2-1 on the trip so far. Before we get too much in the podcast, please give Casey's stuff a read at blazers.com/forwardcenter. Also, give him a follow on Twitter at Seahold. You can follow me on Twitter at Blazer Freeman, and check out mine and my colleagues' stuff at OregonLive.com/Blazers. And please, if you do subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you do, give us a review. It helps us out, and we also really like to know what you think about the show.
Yeah, someone did leave us a SoundCloud review the other day. And
I
nice.
Responded
back to her. So thank you very much for listening. So,
awesome. Yeah, appreciate it.
Shout out to the SoundClouders out there.
Awesome. Today's March 16th. A little side note, it is my date-versary. I told Casey, my wife and I went on our first date 7 years ago. Went to the By and By, had a couple cocktails, had a very, very nice evening.
Yeah. Did you need a kiss? First date?
There was a little bit of a kiss. Yeah. Nothing too crazy, but
sure. Well, yeah, first dates. Of course.
Yeah.
But you guys had known each other a little bit because she had worked at Starbucks. And,
yeah.
She crushed her, I believe.
That's it. Yeah. She was my barista at Starbucks for a while, and I'm not the kind of guy that goes around trying to pick up ladies. I'm not a ladi's man. Well, I am.
We're starting off this podcast with fiction, I see here. But of course, not anymore. Ilana, if you're listening, never anymore, of course.
But so it took me a while to get up the stones to ask her out, and it turns out, which I didn't know, baristas are picked up right and left. And left, and B. There might as well have been a film crew there with cameras on me and her, because everyone behind the scenes knew that she had a crush on me and were monitoring when I would come in, and then when it happened, it was everybody's watching everything in there. So it turned out to be a very public display of proposal or whatever you want to call it.
And that's hard too, because I've been with my wife now for
17 years,
16 years. So I have no real basis to know anything about modern dating. But it seems to me that you're not supposed to necessarily talk to women unprompted anymore.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
because since women are constantly bombarded by
gross
jerk
men.
dudes, I feel like to try to be kind of respectful of that, you're not supposed to necessarily engage. So I don't even know how people. Outside. I guess that's why most dating stuff has gone online, because I don't know exactly how you're supposed to How do you even granted, you're going to have a conversation when you're ordering, but for me, if I were you, and granted, I'm not you, so I maybe don't have the same confidence and so on and so forth, but I would never be able to get up the guts to be like, hey, so maybe would you like to go out sometime, or are you just being nice to me because I'm buying a latte and you're a decent person? So
funny part about it is I originally went in to order my drink, and I knew I was going to pull the trigger and ask her out. I had already decided. And she wasn't working. So I walked into the Starbucks and then looked around and then turned around and walked out.
Well, and that's funny too, because I bet the people knew. They're like, oh, Freeman came here to try to hook up.
Maybe. I was pretty discreet though. I don't know if anybody saw me. But yeah, maybe they do see everything. And then so I went later in the day and she happened to be working. So I asked.
Well, congratulations to you two. And also congratulations to my friends Sarah and Danny. They just had their second child yesterday.
Good for them.
Another son.
Awesome.
Danny Petty's kid John is he looks very much like he's kind of like got a real Charlie Brown kind of look to him, like he always looks scared. And it cracks me up every time I see him. So especially as someone who doesn't have kids and who is not going to have kids, like I really pay attention to the photos that my friends post I feel like that's kind of how I can involve some youth in my life, is by at least paying attention to the propagation of the species that my friends are participating in.
Well, congratulations to them.
Yeah, way to go, Petties.
All right, let's get into news and notes. The Blazers defeated the San Antonio Spurs 110-106 Wednesday night in San Antonio, claiming what Coach Terry Stotts called their win of the year. The Blazers have won 6 of their last 8 games, 2 of 3 on this 5-game trip, and that trip continues this weekend. Damian Lillard continued his torrid play in the win, scoring 36 points on 12 of 22 shooting. Lillard was crazy good in the third quarter when he scored 16 points, including 12 in a row during one crazy stretch. Lillard is averaging 30 points, 5.6 assists, and 4.8 rebounds. He's shooting 48% from the field, 39% from deep since the All-Star break. It's a crazy 11-game stretch in which he is really propelling this team into the playoff race. Also of note, Lillard is averaging 28.9 points per game in his career in San Antonio, which I assume is just in the regular season, now that I think about that.
Did you see that stat that I think
20-point games in a row or something?
Well, no, that he the only player that has a higher scoring average in San Antonio than Damian Lillard is Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. That's, I guess.
I mean, it's kind of it's random, but I mean, like it.
Well, and quite frankly, like no team in professional sports, arguably, but certainly in the NBA, has been better more consistently for longer than the Spurs. No, so absolutely. That really speaks. That's a pretty interesting stat. Next up, Evan Turner is expected to rejoin the Blazers today in Atlanta and plans on returning to practice on Friday. If all goes well, the Blazers forward could return to face the Hawks on Saturday. He has not played since fracturing the third metacarpal in his right hand on February 5th. And finally, a look ahead. The Blazers finish their 5-game trip this weekend with a back-to-back at Atlanta and Miami. Then they return home to face the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday. Quick standings watch. I think we already mentioned this, but let's give a quick standing watch update. Blazers are in 9th place, 2 games behind the Denver Nuggets, 1 game ahead of the Mavericks. And then also monitoring the Blazers trio of first-round draft picks. If the season ended today, the Blazers would have the 12th pick, which would be their own. The 20th pick, which would be the Grizzlies via the trade with the Denver Nuggets.
Correct.
And the 26th pick from the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Correct.
All right.
That Cavaliers pick, too, by the way, we were discussing how the Celtics are actually pretty close to the Cavaliers in the standings, which would, so if you're a Trailblazer fan, in theory, you would like to see the Celtics pass the Cavaliers, so that pick would improve. Evan Turner, Isaiah Thomas is not going on their next trip to Brooklyn and Philadelphia. So
for rest or for injury?
I suppose he's got some minor swelling in his knee.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. So while that's probably not, I mean, I think they could probably still win those games without him.
They're winning in Brooklyn.
Might hurt those chances. Though, and not Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia, as anyone who watched both games Blazers have played against them this year, they play hard. Yeah. They're a tough team. And
they have a lot of young talent.
And they just almost beat the Warriors a couple days ago in San Francisco. So, or Oakland, pardon me, folks.
Bay Area.
Yeah. No, I'm going to say Oakland because obviously they're ripping that team away from Oakland. But, while they're in Oakland, we should say Oakland.
Respect the O-Town.
Exactly.
Well, let's get right into the rest of the show, I suppose. We sort of broached this earlier, but it seems to me that the last 2 games, that back-to-back, that 2-day stretch, the lopsided loss in New Orleans when the Blazers scored their fewest points and had their worst shooting night of the season, and then the next night when they beat the San Antonio Spurs in what Stotts called their best win of the year. I mean, is that not this Blazers season in 2 days? Is there a more fitting? I mean, really, you look at some of the bad losses they've had this year. You can't figure them out, like you talked about. Inconsistent, which is a bit surprising considering the gains that we thought they made last year. But while they have had a lot of these bad teams, and I know we went through and added up, what is their record against teams with losing records?
As of right now, their record against teams with winning record,
losing records.
Oh, losing records. Yeah, they are 20-15 against teams with losing records.
So you figure if even just 5-6 more wins, you're looking at 26-9, which is great. And I think in a lot of ways that's been the difference. And CJ talked about this after the win in San Antonio. Is they always show up, he said, for the games against good teams, but they play down to the level of their competition in these bad games, and I think we've seen that all year. I mean, when you look at some of their better wins at Boston, obviously last night at San Antonio. Wait, they win at Boston? Yeah, they won at Boston. Yeah. Last night in San Antonio, there was another really good one that I'm now spacing on.
Let me look here. At Oklahoma City?
That was it.
Both Oklahoma
City
games.
Yeah,
actually,
Oklahoma City. That was the one I was thinking of. I mean, 3 really good road wins, 2 during their recent good play, obviously since the All-Star break. But then you throw in some of these losses against just teams that are just not very good. And it's head-scratching, and more importantly, is a direct reason why they might not make the playoffs, or at the very least are in the predicament they're in.
Yeah, and if they had, and granted, every team has some of these games throughout the year, so in some respects it's probably not entirely fair to say, well, if they had done this, they wouldn't be in this situation. But, I think particularly if you're the guys on the team who really are gung-ho about making the playoffs, there are probably about 3 or 4 games where it's like, man, we just pissed that away. And if we had won those games, we'd be in a very good position right now. We'd be better off than Nuggets are. And I think you can make an argument that if they had, if they get 5 of those games that they probably should have won, and that's not to say that they should be beating all the teams with losing records, because the Blazers themselves have a losing record. They're one of those teams. But if they had taken care of business a couple times, they'd be squared away.
Well, they're 2 games back of Denver right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you put 5 wins in there, and you do the math.
So and so there's, regardless of how this season ends, I think there's definitely going to be some looking back with regret, and particularly if they miss the playoffs. I think that there's multiple games that I think they're going to look at and say, boy, that was
whoops,
we screwed up. The Wizards game being a good option. Granted, I'm guessing in some respects they would point to the officiating in that game, which, by the way, I saw that the league rescinded another one of DeMarcus Cousins' technical fouls that he got.
Oh, really?
So they'll just rescind Cousins' technicals like it's going out of style. But
wow.
You flub a call and then you got to live with it, which is fair. The Blazers have been the beneficiary of some of those calls throughout the years too. But long story short, a lot of reason to look back on this season when it's all over and say, whatever problems we encountered were self-inflicted.
And you look at some of the success the Blazers had before last season, when they really had that nice 2-year stretch of really good regular seasons. One of their hallmarks was that they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, and they took care of business against the worst teams in the NBA. And really, that is a hallmark of a veteran team, especially, but also of just a good team. You're supposed to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, and like you said, from time to time you'll slip up and have a loss. It's not the end of the world, but man, when you are in a playoff chase that they are in right now, and every game matters so much, every night is so important, to go into New Orleans with all the momentum that they had and then just completely lay the bed or lay an egg is just inexcusable.
You're mixing your metaphors there.
I caught myself from saying what I didn't want to say, but I said the second part of it.
Defecate the bed.
Yeah, right.
And the other part too, just looking at, if we're talking records and things they should have done, their home record this year too,
not as good as you want it to be.
They're 17-14 at the Moda setting this year, barely 500.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, where even when they haven't been as good as you would hope they would be, you could always count on them giving teams really good games at home. And that hasn't been the case this year. Going 500 basically at home for a team like the Trailblazers is a failure.
Perfect example of exactly what you're talking about. They beat the Cavaliers in that snow game, one of their better wins. Another good win in their ledger. And then 2 nights later, they lost to Orlando. at home. Orlando in the
And they
middle
got punked in that game.
right.
Well, that's going to clip.
I like it.
Yeah.
Nice. No, keep that in. Yeah, so it's just, again, we thought last year we sort of expected this because they were such a young, inexperienced team. But a team that made so many important strides late last year and had so much playoff success, you would think they'd be a little bit immune to that. But for whatever reason, and like you mentioned, even at home, just disappointing, I guess.
Yeah.
One person who hasn't been disappointing, and we touched on this in the news and notes, is Damian Lillard, who is just playing at another level right now. It's kind of impossible to sum up how important he is to this team on so many levels, be it his leadership, be it his play, be it his clutch shooting, be it his tendency to rise to the occasion when that occasion matters most. But one thing that I think is interesting, and I think we've sort of reached this level certainly this season, but I think it's been going on for a few weeks, if not a couple months, is I think we've finally hit the point where Blazers fans are starting to take him for granted a little bit. I mean, we had, there was the whole CJ blew up, obviously had his hot run a while ago, and there was the whole new debate of, is CJ replacing Dame as the better player on this team? Which one's better for the long term of the franchise? You kind of see Damian Lillard's numbers, which are just among the league's best, all around in scoring, rebounding, and assists, and you're kind of like, oh, well, I mean, that's what he does. And here we are. He's scored 30 or more points in 6 of the last 11 games. Blazers, I think, are 7-4 in their last 11 since the All-Star break, and a lot of that is has direct correlation to how he's playing.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I mean, I read what he's averaging since the All-Star break. I'll read it one more time to let it sink in. He's averaging 30 points, 5.6 assists, 4.8 rebounds. He's shooting 48% from the field. I don't know what much more he can do, and I don't think that everybody's taking him for granted, but I think we've kind of reached peak Dame where he has hit this level where expectations are what they are, and I think people are starting to take him for granted.
Absolutely. And Damian has made a habit throughout the years of playing well after the All-Star break, and typically people assume it's because he doesn't make the All-Star break and kind of goes on a tear to kind of show, hey, I should have been there. Mm-hmm. This year it's been different, though. What Damian's been reacting to after the All-Star break is not getting to the All-Star team this year, but it's been two things. One, it's how much they've struggled to get in a position to make the playoffs, and Damian's basically, like, the idea of not making the playoffs to him it's physically upsetting.
Yeah.
I think he is very determined for this team to make the playoffs, and granted, some fans aren't gonna. Well, I would say won't like that.
Not trying to hear that.
Anyone wants, I think, their best players to want to win. Like even people that would rather see the team, get a better draft pick. I if they're fans of the team, which they are, I think they'd still like to see their good players do well. But the other thing that Damian's been reacting to is what you're talking about, Joe. Kind of the way that fans, I wouldn't say have turned on him, but at least have kind of viewed him lately, which is, he's not good enough defensively. Is CJ better? Can they coexist together? Would this team be better off if they tried to trade Damian for X, Y, and Z? And, he's seen that stuff. And, I think before the team started playing a little bit better here after they made the Nurkic trade and after the All-Star break, I think it was reaching a breaking point for him to where he was kind of close to saying, hey, I think he was kind of wanting to make his case for himself, being like, hey, I signed here. I'm a good player. I love Portland. I want to be here. Yes, we're struggling right now. I don't necessarily think that means that, that you guys should be trying to ride me out of town on a rail.
Right.
And in talking to him, you always got to kind of remind guys that, hey, you're hearing the bad things, and there's a lot of people saying good things too that maybe you're just not hearing. So it's like you don't necessarily want players to just take the negativity and assume that that's the way everyone feels, but they do pay attention to that stuff. And Damian in particular, like I said, he was to the point where I think he he felt like he needed to say something about it. Now the team is playing better, so that's kind of subsided a bit. But it's just one of those things where, like, if fans think that players don't hear what they say, they're wrong. I mean, like, especially nowadays, players pay attention.
I don't know if Al-Farouq Aminu hears what people say.
Not every player does. Al-Farouq Aminu does not. Like, and we always joke about this as media members. A lot of players are always like, I don't read anything, and most of them do. Al-Farouq Aminu is one of those guys. Like, he's not reading anything that's being written about him. He's not watching television. Like, he is one of those guys where it's like he's actually being honest. He pays no mind.
I never thought that I would say this, but this might actually be true, what I'm about to say. More than any other player, I would like to have like a fly with a video camera that just follows him around all day. I want to know what he does, like beginning a day to end a day. What does his day look like? It might be way more intriguing and eclectic than you might expect.
Yeah, someone doing a TikTok of Al-Farouq Aminu day might actually be, one, he wouldn't let you do it.
Well, yeah, for sure.
But two, yeah, like I know he meditates every day. I believe in the morning. And I'm rather certain he spends a lot of time with his wife and his young daughter.
Yeah.
And I know he makes music, though I have no idea what it sounds like or what genre it is or anything about it.
Which is so perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I know he reads, but I don't think I think maybe he watches some like stuff online from time to time, I think he said, but yeah, so to your point, Joe, yeah, with everyone else, I feel like I have kind of a general idea of kind of what their day looks like. Yeah, with Al-Farouq, no, I don't know.
It would be fun. It would be fun to get a little insight into that, though.
Well, and he's into, like he wears crystals. He's into chakras. Like, so, like, I think there's some opportunity there for some interesting kind of minor, particularly, Al-Farouq Aminu is an African-American man from Atlanta. I'm a white guy from Oregon. There's probably some parts of his home life that, like, I'm completely unaware of. That, like, I just don't know they exist. So, like, it would be interesting to kind of get an idea of more what that looks like.
He is not the only person I've ever met, but one of the few people I met, certainly one of the few NBA players who, every time I see him, it looks like he just got out of bed.
Yeah. It's
literally every time I see him.
I love Al-Farouq, but as someone who takes a lot of photos of players too, it's a little tough to get a good photo of Al-Farouq.
His hair is just always...
Not that and I think part of it's because he doesn't care.
It's his thing, like,
I mean, I like his look, actually. And he's actually a pretty smart dresser, actually. Yeah. But, I sometimes I even think that, like, he makes faces to where it's like, you don't want me to take your photo, so you're kind of giving me a kind of a scowl. Yeah. But
it's pretty funny.
You don't look a killer in the eye, Joe.
Yeah. Look, don't mess with El Jefe, all right?
Exactly.
Let's keep this on the real.
Yeah.
So I think about this as I just finished my coffee here in Atlanta. I was telling Casey this earlier today. I need anybody who is a barista or someone who is an expert in the coffee field to weigh in on this for me. Either send me a tweet at Blazer Freeman, shoot me an email, or find a way to get a hold of me. But I have noticed over the last 2 days, for the first time, and I have myself a coffee every day, a vanilla latte to be exact. In San Antonio yesterday and in Atlanta today, I went to order my standard 12-ounce vanilla latte, and both of the coffee shops told me they don't sell 12-ounce vanilla lattes. They only do 10-ounce coffees. So I need to know, A, why is this going on? B, is this going to be a growing trend that's going to spread to the Northwest? And C, what the hell? Why am I losing 2 ounces of my coffee? That's an unknown amount of caffeine to me that I might now not make it to 3, or you know what I mean? Who knows?
That's true, Joe, and I understand your concern, and I think it's valid. Though I will say, when the apocalypse does come, if you giving up those 2 ounces of coffee results in there being coffee available for like an extra 5 years that otherwise wouldn't have been, maybe at that point.
Well, actually, I'm not losing, now that I think about it, I'm not losing caffeine. I'm just losing milk. Because they're still doing 2 shots.
Ah, okay.
So it's just we would have a shortage of milk, which is probably more important than caffeine in the grand scheme of things.
Probably. Yeah, I think we'll probably be able to do without milk.
Yeah, you think so? Like, what about babies and stuff?
Well, I mean,
mothers.
Women are still going to produce breast milk, I would imagine.
Some have trouble, though.
Yeah, I saw a video the other day of this. It was in India, and people probably saw it too. But there's a religion in India, and it's somewhat small, but I think it's. I don't remember exactly. I don't want to offend anyone by saying the wrong thing, but basically, long story short, they're very attuned with animals. Like animals are very important, and particularly deer are like a sacred animal to them. So they have these groups that like they'll find orphaned does or deer that their family, and they will breastfeed them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. No, they showed the video. This lady, this lady had her human child breastfeeding, and
wow.
Then, they cut away, and then next thing you know, there's the baby deer suckling away.
Now that is the miracle of nature right there.
I mean, it's the original superfood or whatever, right?
Boy, I wonder if the deer will then always have like a special connection with this woman.
I think so, and I think that's part of it too. Is the notion of like
nurturing
and being a part of your actual family rather than just like a animal. So
that is, I would call that interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get into buy or sell.
To basketball. Yeah.
Nice little transition there. Okay, Casey. Buy or sell. The Blazers will win 40 games this season. Now, I asked this question because I have 2 independent bets that says they will not. Now, to be clear, neighbor Dan and I had a bet about the Blazers, and he went way too high because he's a fan. And he threw in a bet that said if they win, like 55 games, I owe him another thing out of the bet. And if they don't win 40, then he owes me. So this is an independent bet that he came up with. But then recently, a member of the PR staff and I got into a bet with this, and I doubled down on it just because why not? Because I really don't care if they win or lose, and I'd be happy to lose the bet. It's not a big deal to me. But, so I've got the under on this. So to answer a long-winded answer, I'm taking the sell on this. They are not going to win 40 games. Currently, just to give you an update, they are 30-37 with 15 games left, so they would need to go 10-5 over their final 15 games.
I mean, my gut tells me that they're not going to get to 40, but let me do a quick count here real quick of games I think they're going to win. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 7, 8. So no.
All right. Next up.
So sell. I guess
so sell.
To stay with the theme. We're terrible at that, by the way, too.
Yeah, it's all right. People have come to expect it.
I'll rent it.
I'll rent it. Ooh, not an option. Yeah. Buy or sell, Casey. Evan Turner will return and start on Saturday.
I will sell that as well.
Do you think he's going to return?
Let's see. What date is that game? The 18th?
Yep. While you think it over,
go ahead, Joe.
will buy his return but sell his start. I think he will return but not start.
I'm going to sell both. I will say, I mean, obviously he's with the team. He's going to practice tomorrow is my understanding. But I'm going to sell both. I think I'll say he won't play against the Hawks. He will play against the Heat.
Okay.
Because that's the thing, too. You got to play it back-to-back. I mean, granted, it's a hand, so it's not exactly the same thing as if it was like an ankle or a knee injury. But still, doing a back-to-back coming off of a not insignificant injury, I don't know.
I just know that this is a dude who is chomping at the bit to return.
I know he wants to play,
and
for
if he's medically cleared to play, and he wants to play, and he's in good enough shape to play, then he will play. I mean, it might be for 12 minutes.
Okay.
Might be for 15 minutes. I just think he's going to play.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad we're disagreeing here, though, because it makes for a better show.
But to the larger point, I know we've had questions about this both this week and last week of will he start. I think that the Blazers are, because they're playing their best basketball of the season and you're playing too well to mess with what is working.
Yeah, I do not think he will start.
You don't change you don't mess with your mojo. You don't change with what right now is working. And so I think you throw him back into the fray off the bench and you figure out a way to work him in that way, and you don't mess with the starting lineup right now.
I mean, the one thing, bringing both Mo and Al-Farouq off the bench Well, they're having some success with that, but that's the thing with this team though too. It's like you can't even say what does and doesn't work because again, like
Which
they'll
way is
play
the wind
good for
blowing?
3 games and then they'll play awful for 4 games. So
Yeah.
it's really tough to say. So in that regard, I would say that you would probably just err towards the side of sticking with what you're doing now rather than putting it to chance, especially right now because like not that it's going to be like a significant integration, but like they don't have any time to stumble along trying to kind of get their rhythm back with Evan in the lineup.
Yeah, you got to jump in the deep end. You're not wading into the pool. Yeah. Buy or sell, Casey. The Blazers will finish over 500 on this trip. They are 2-1 right now.
2-1 right now.
You got a back-to-back at Atlanta and at Miami this weekend. You just need to win one of those two.
Now, just doing my counts, I didn't pick them to win either one of these games, but I will say that they will. And so I'll already switch.
You're splitting your bet.
And I mean, it still wouldn't. I still would have sold on the 40 games.
Been 9,
but yes, I will buy that. They will finish with a better than 500 record.
I'm gonna say no. I think they lose the back-to-back. They don't historically play well at either of those buildings.
No, they do not. One thing I will say, so the Hawks play tonight versus the Grizzlies. So
they play Saturday.
Huh?
If the Hawks play tonight, then they play Saturday. We don't play tomorrow. We have practice tomorrow.
Well, right. What I'm saying is, we got a couple days off. The Hawks are going to be playing at least one game before that. So they're not going to be playing on the second back.
I thought you were going. That's where I thought you were going.
No. I just more. Though someone did mention that the Blazers were playing 4 games in 5 nights, and they are not playing 4 games in 5 nights.
They just finished a 4 and 5.
Yes, they finished one, but they were not playing one. And the Hawks are, they're playing all right.
Miami's one of the hottest teams in the league.
Well, so I think in some respects, for reasons that people can probably figure out, you might be better off playing the Heat on the second night of a back-to-back.
Oh, for sure.
Than staying in Miami the night before, but both really hard games.
You already made your pick.
I'm buying it. They're going to go 3-2.
Okay, we're going to get to some questions. And actually, though, before we do get to current questions, we are going to answer a question that we liked from last week's podcast that we wanted to put in a little more thought because it was a good question. And again, we solicit questions either the day of the podcast or the day before the podcast or the evening before the podcast on Twitter. Either Casey or I or both of us will send out a query. And again, Casey's on Twitter at Seahold, and I'm on Twitter at Blazer Freeman if you want to follow us. But this is from Podstalgic Peter. Can you describe each player with a movie title? And so how about I will ask the player and then...
okay, yeah, and I did like 7 or 8 of them. Joe did the whole...
I went the whole gamut.
Roster.
Yeah.
And I kind of went back and forth between describing them as a player or more as a person. So that's, these are each our own kind of... we interpreted it the way we felt like interpreting it. So.
Right. First up, let's start with the only All-Star Damian Lillard.
Okay. For Damian, I put down Moneyball.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Yeah. I went Gladiator.
Gladiator, yeah. Also, could also see that. Yeah.
I think both of those are fairly obvious. Why?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Although I like yours because it's nice on a lot of levels.
Yeah, the Moneyball, I felt like you got kind of the undervalued prospect. They're both from Oakland.
He makes a lot of money.
He makes a lot of money.
And he is money.
Yeah, he is money. He shoots the ball well. The money ball being the last ball in the rack in the three-point contest. Not that he's ever been in the three. Well, yes, he has been in the three-point contest once. But, there you go.
I also like Gladiator for him because he's a warrior.
Exactly.
And a leader of men.
That's a better encapsulation of who Damian is.
Yeah.
Mine is more kind of basketball focused.
Which is the beauty of this question.
Yeah.
Next up, CJ.
I put American Sniper.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I did The Professional.
Yeah, I can see that too. I considered The Accountant actually for CJ as well.
That's good.
Professional is that's good.
Yeah. He's real buttoned up. He's always very professional.
Sure.
He really takes what he's doing in a way that it's like he's always on a job interview or on the job.
It's a real good movie, by the way, too.
The Professional?
Gary Oldman is real good.
Natalie Portman.
As
a young child. Yeah.
Kind of a weird Lolita thing in that movie, which is kind of it's. But it
adds another layer of
exactly.
Okay, how about Mo Harkless?
Mo Harkless, I put a Castaway.
Huh.
Seeing
I
as
like it.
no, he was he
Sure.
fell out in Orlando, came to Portland, had a little resurgence, and Mo was actually one of the harder ones too. First, I was trying to think of something New York based.
That's where I went.
But to me, like Mo, I mean, he's obviously from Queens, but Mo doesn't like scream like New York to me. You know,
Yeah.
like he's not like. I mean, he is a New York guy, but he's not. You know, like he doesn't have the accent. He's not like super bravado. He's not always talking about how great New York is
Or himself. But he does ooze the other side of New York. The just like the kind of cool New York.
Sure.
The just kind of like, I know I'm cool and I just roll with it. You know, I am who I am. But I went King of New York.
King of New York. Yeah,
Just because, Broadway Mo.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, Al-Farouq Aminu, I have a couple that, so I'm going to have to really pick. I thought about doing Good, the Bad, the Ugly, just
Okay.
because his
That's actually that's a good one, Joe.
yeah. But I decided to go. The other option was The Hangover, just because he looks like he wakes up out of every time I see him, he
Okay,
looks like he got out of bed. But I decided to go with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind,
Oh, okay.
because I just feel like that's Al-Farouq Aminu to me.
Yeah, I could see that. It's always good to have a short memory.
Yeah.
Too. I put down this one was tough for me, and I don't love it. I just put down Guardians of the Galaxy because he's a good defender. I thought about going 999, but he's 8, so it doesn't work.
quite
even
work.
though the movie is set in Atlanta, which I watched it a couple trips ago. Not very good, but not awful either. So yeah, I didn't feel great about that one. Again, it's a lot of these I based off of where they're from.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
But I don't think Mo or Al-Farouq roller skates, so I didn't pick ATL because that's what I most associate that movie with is roller skating.
I probably should have gone with Good, the Bad, the Ugly, just because it's like his game in a movie title. But
Yeah.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, there's just something about that his picture should be a part
Absolutely.
of it. Kind of had struggle with Yusuf Nurkic, but I decided to I went with Saturday Night Fever. Just
Okay.
because of the Nurkic fever, and I don't know what it is, but I could like see
So you
him
could have
wearing
gone
a.
with like Contagion or
Yeah.
Outbreak or
I went with just a little, just a little different.
Sure.
I also kind of thought about Rebel Without a Cause because I don't know why, but it just seems like. But I like Saturday Night Fever because the idea of him like in a '70s disco wearing
Sure.
like a gigantic white polyester suit, and then you got Fever in the name. It was too irresistible to pass.
Sure. Well, I went with Big just because he's a big guy. But now I'm
gigantic.
thinking about it, I think Eastern Promises would be a good one.
Yeah.
And also I guess another Viggo Mortensen movie, which is kind of weird, History of Violence.
Oh, okay.
Another one. Not that he's particularly
Eastern
violent
Promises is good. I couldn't think of a good movie with that was like Eastern.
Yeah, I mean, granted, Eastern Promises is set in Russia, so I wouldn't want to offend anyone
indeed.
with the crossover there. But just in general, he's got that Eastern European kind of. Don't know what his background is.
Yeah.
necessarily.
Mysteriousness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Alan Crabb.
Alan Crabb, Cool Runnings.
Oh, that's a good one. I couldn't think of a cool movie, so I went with L.A. Confidential.
I literally looked up, Google searched movies with "cool" in the title, and
yeah,
that's
Cool Runnings came.
Yeah. So.
All right, Evan Turner.
Weird Science.
That is on my list.
Is it? Oh, good.
I decided to go. You couldn't go E.T. It's just too
No,
literal.
that's too on the nose. Yeah.
So it was between Dr. Strangelove
that
and
works.
Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah.
And I went with Dr. Strangelove just because he's definitely strange, he's odd, he embraces that, but he's a guy you kind of love.
Yeah.
So I thought
he
it
wears
was.
those little glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Doctor Strangelove is a good. That's the better one. Yeah.
But Weird Science was on my list for sure. Noah Vonleh.
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I couldn't escape. Every time I thought of his name, I thought Lion King.
Sure. Okay.
He's like Simba, Simba, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you can just see him.
He's a very nice young man.
Yeah.
He's demure, kind, a
Big
little
like a
shy,
lion, yeah.
Big. You would hope that he would have, that he has a future and a potential that he has not yet reached.
Right.
But with the help of coming to terms with his past, can overcome and become king of the jungle.
Right. So Lion King. Shabazz Napier.
I actually didn't do one for Shabazz.
Shooter.
Shooter. Yeah, see, Shooter was going to be what I was going to for CJ McCollum. So
No.
yeah.
Ed Davis.
I didn't do Ed either.
I've got
the only other one I have left is Myers. So
Okay.
but let's do all of Joe's.
well, Ed Davis he's the Godfather.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's just no question.
Yeah.
So you want me to do mine and then we'll do Myers, or do you want to do Myers?
Myers. Yeah, we can do Myers too.
Okay,
Just
Myers.
finish off mine.
So I went with Big for Myers.
Okay.
Because he's also gigantic, and he just is, he's like a big kid I could see him being the guy in Tom Hanks in Big, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I went with the Nice Guys because
That's a great one,
Myers
too.
Is just kind of a very down-home, nice young man.
I thought about going It's a Wonderful Life just because that kind of epitomizes him, old nostalgic, and he has a wonderful life. But I went with Big.
Yeah. By the way, too, the Nice Guys. If you haven't seen it, an underrated movie.
It is pretty good.
Yeah.
I liked it. I saw it on a plane.
It's kind of dumb, but I think what's his name in it is fantastic. Both the main
Mark
leads.
Wahlberg.
No,
Isn't he in it?
no, it's
Oh no! Russell Crowe and
the Mouseketeer.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, well I'll get through my last four.
Yeah. I should ask you. Let me ask you, Joe. Since
Okay.
you're doing it. So let's see. Who do we have left here? Who else is on the team? Pat Connaughton.
Good Will Hunting.
Good one. Yeah.
Just for the
Makes
Boston.
sense,
yeah.
the Boston and the other. Well, I guess not Bostonian, but what's his name? With the hair, Jake Lehman.
Lehman. The Graduate.
The Graduate. Why?
He just seems like a young, kind of innocent kid who's potentially
Gonna be seduced by-
an attractive fellow for an older woman. I don't know.
I've actually never seen that movie, so I only know all the references to it. I don't know
it's a
the
good
actual-
movie. It's apparently when it came out, it was pretty scandalous, and it's not scandalous anymore. So I don't know why. For some reason, that movie popped in my head when I thought of it.
Let's see. Who do we got left? Tim Quarterman.
So this was by far my worst one. I couldn't think of anything, so I just went with Gone with the Wind because that dude is gone.
He has just played with the Windy City Bulls, too.
There you go. See, he's just proof. Was Gone with the Wind, and I haven't seen him in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, they got to be bringing him back here sometime soon. You would imagine.
I asked Stotts about that the other day, and he didn't know. Yeah. My last one, I'll let you. I mean, if you want.
Yes. So Festus.
It's pretty simple. MASH. I mean, the dude is always hurt. I mean,
there you go. Yeah, getting the we never really talked about too. So yeah, getting the cadaver. Donated meniscus thing or whatever.
Finally got that.
Best of luck, Festus.
Yeah,
man.
he's been hunting for that for a while.
Works.
Yeah. Good luck. Okay. Let's get up to the rest of the question, shall we?
Let's.
And by the way, Mitchell, we do have your food cart question on the back burner. We'll save that for another episode as well.
And food carts too, where it's getting harder and harder these days because you never know
There's
what a food
a billion,
cart.
yeah.
Well, one there are a lot of them, but two, like they kind of switch back and forth between
brick and mortar
existing
and food cart.
non-existing, brick and mortar and non-brick and mortar. By the way, too. Chicken and Guns, one of my favorite carts. Supposedly they're expanding to multiple brick and mortars. Be careful, guys. Like don't overexpand.
Oh,
because I feel like some places kind of getting that they have success, and then it's like, yeah, let's open 3 shops, and then you end up going out of business. Your chicken is delicious, so just manageable growth.
Be careful out there.
Yeah. This coming from someone who has exactly zero experience in the restaurant industry.
First up, from the DOG, best guess on who will be the sponsorship patch starting next season. I actually started to kind of ask questions about this, and my understanding is they haven't made a decision yet. So
I have not. I was in a meeting about this was mentioned about a month ago, and now I don't even recall what it was. I remember thinking it was not something I had necessarily heard of before, which I guess is maybe kind of the point.
The point, yeah. I really couldn't even fathom a guess, to be honest with you. I mean, I could just pick some local company, something, but it would just be me pulling it out of my butt. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I can't remember what McGowan said about kind of what their thought process was in it too. I mean, they want to do it, but he said something kind of about what they were looking for, and now I can't remember it. I have to go back in my notes, though I probably shouldn't even be talking about that.
Okay, next up from Ryan Lyle. Is there any known cure for Nurkic fever?
Well, the New Orleans Pelicans.
And the first 3 quarters of the whoever they just beat, the Spurs.
Yeah.
He was like 3 for 18 at one point combined in those 2 games before going in the fourth quarter.
Well, for like his first 5 games, like every single time he put up one of those underhand shots at the rim, it went in, and they have not really gone in since then. So I think that's been part of it. But yeah, no, they showed how important it is to have a guy like Nurkic when games get tight. Like, to give them another like legitimate scoring option behind Dame and CJ, someone to throw the defense off. They didn't have that before, and now they have it. So like that, you would hope that will result maybe at least if not this year, next year, with them kind of doing better in close games, because they have another guy in there. And to also answer the question, if they didn't end up losing that game because Nurkic threw away that inbounds pass, that probably would have
been the end of fever.
Nipped your Nurkic fever in the bud real quick. So.
As he said, he almost ended up on Shaq and the Fool.
Yeah.
I would say Rudy Gobert. I would say another very good defensive center. Who might that be?
See, I feel like
DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah,
someone who's athletic and powerful and can jump.
See, I don't feel like Gobert is the guy that you really have to worry about so much with a guy like Nurkic. I just feel like Nurkic can get in his body. Yeah,
I mean, then he gets down low, and then Gobert's arms are like Gumby, and he just reaches out and palms the ball.
But Nurkic, to his credit too, like he's crafty in his
very
crafty. Too. Like he's not just like going up and trying to lay it up, kind of willy nilly. Like he's pretty. He's got some moves.
Well, he uses a jump hook, which no one else does. And he's got that weird post move that is like he gets on the block, and instead of going the way that everybody else in the world and the league goes, he spins the other way and like flips it up almost backwards. That's actually one of my favorite moves, and he's very effective at it. But yeah, also antibiotics I think would cure Nurkic fever. I think you take 2 weeks of antibiotics.
Less useful though, Joe, with people overusing antibiotics and all of the antibiotics in our food. It's
becoming a problem.
What they once were.
You always make fun of me for the meat I eat. Next up from Kyle Hart, do you think Noah Vonleh can be the starting power forward for the future alongside Yusuf Nurkic?
I mean, in theory, yes. I'm kind of with Noah the same place I am with Myers, which is, I think that Noah has been playing pretty well lately, and I hope that it's an indication of things to come. But until I see it consistently, like I just can't get on board with any kind of like, could he be this or that?
It's like the Blazers this season.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to believe that they are anything more than I've seen until they prove it to me.
I think he has been doing, and he's been doing a better job finishing at the rim, which has oddly been kind of an issue for him. I mean, like you see him and you think, oh man, this guy is just going to be murdering the rim. And it's just, he gets blocked quite a bit. It seems like he has to kind of like power up sometimes before he can go back up to the basket. So, just some more fluidity in those moves, I think. And as he gets older and maybe a bit more confidence as well, I think he absolutely could be that. And I think, that's obviously why they made that trade, with the idea that, Noah was going to be, if not the power forward, quote unquote, of the future for them, at least a very useful
key piece,
rotational big. And he's getting there, but he's not there yet.
Had a real nice game against the Spurs, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, had some big fourth quarter minutes, or big second half minutes, and played, I think, a season high 26 minutes. I believe it was a season high.
Didn't miss a shot either from the field or from the line.
Also had 10 rebounds against the Pelicans in what was an otherwise forgettable game, and then was pretty good against the Suns too. Had 7 points and 7 rebounds. Obviously his versatility, he can do a lot both offensively and defensively. It's just much like this team, inconsistency is really been an issue for him. But he's playing now. 26, 23, 23, 18, 22. He's getting consistent minutes. He's getting a fair amount of minutes, and that's the only way you're going to find out what you have out of this guy, and the only way he's going to get better. So I guess we'll know moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're the Trailblazers, what I guess would be the prime situation for you would be for him to just be okay until his contract is up, sign a reasonable contract, and then for him to blow up.
Then have him blow up.
Yeah, exactly. That's if you want to go for like what the gold standard Noah Vonleh situation, at least in terms of the Portland Trailblazers, would be that.
And I think to Kyle's point is that the addition of Nurkic does change the equation a bit for Noah.
Absolutely.
It opens up.
And to that point, it's not just Noah's.
Right.
Yeah.
It opens up things for him in a way that he hasn't had. I mean, Mason wasn't that type of player and couldn't help Noah in that regard. And I think Terry mentioned this the other day. I was asking him about Noah before New Orleans, and he's been pretty good. He's been a pretty solid, versatile defender. He does have the ability to switch on guards, and he can guard bigs because he's so thick. So it's probably not a coincidence that he's playing very well now. That Nurkic is a part of the fray. It'll be interesting to see if they continue that chemistry and how much he develops, I guess.
Absolutely.
Next up from Micah, not a question, but I've realized I study best at around 5 a.m. listening to the pod, so thanks for the knowledge.
Yeah, that was very kind of that young man. I read that.
Good luck, Micah. Next up from Reed Andrews, has Fort Stott's been less 40 this season? He was as 40 as ever until about 2 weeks ago, and it was like something just changed, and he all of a sudden...
So after the All-Star break, I kind of made a conscious decision that I was going to try to be a bit more positive. And not just about the team, because, whatever. Mm-hmm. But just in general. Just, affect-wise, just try to be a little more gracious. And for some reason, I had mentioned that to Terry, and Terry was like, yeah, I feel the same way. I'm going to do the same thing. And I think kind of after the first half of the season, whereas, we're kind of just floating along here, and I think the idea was you know what, this is who we are, but let's at least be positive about it, even when things aren't going as well, at least, accept it for what it is and keep it moving and just kind of, again, have a better disposition about it. And I think, that might be part of the reason why.
Could be. Reed Andrews has another question. Given the Blazers' cap plus depth plus the number of first-round picks, that would be 3, do you anticipate they'll get an international player in the draft? Possibly. I'm hesitant to answer questions about the draft because it's far too early, and they could end up trading a couple of those picks. They could end up drafting and stashing. It's certainly a possibility. Let's put it this way. If they end up keeping all 3 of those picks, then yes.
I think that a draft and stash is the least likely of, well, I won't say of the 3 options, but I would say I would more expect them to trade that pick than to take a European player.
Agreed.
I don't know how much Portland's front office loves European players. Now, granted, good ones I think they're very high on. I mean, obviously, I remember a couple years back they interviewed Kristaps Porzingis in Las Vegas, even though they didn't even have a draft pick, because it was if we have a chance, we should try to make a play at this guy. But I think the mid-round European players,
the Victor Clavers,
I think those have kind of. I think people are a little more skeptical of those players now anyways, and I think that I've kind of gotten the sense that those are not necessarily the guys that they're looking towards. For instance, I remember when they drafted Daniel Diaz out of Spain, I even think that Neil mentioned that one of the reasons they got him was as a something they could trade. As in because it's helpful to have players overseas, not even to trade them for other players, but to include them in trades because they take up X amount of space. And again, it's it's kind of just a transactional thing. It's just an option to have that. So
they do have an international scout, though. Let's
oh
be
yeah,
clear.
no, Lubick Milosevic, I think is his last name. No, and they scout extensively overseas.
Yeah. They do.
And
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and if I gave that impression,
no, you didn't. I was just.
But yeah, no, that I just think they're a little more
skeptical,
I think they're probably
conservative.
A little, that, and I think they're probably looking more for young athletic players that, not that they don't come from Europe, but it's
not their hallmark.
Not necessarily the skill set. Yeah, though you have the Giannis Antetokounmpos and the Bruno, and he's not European obviously, but Bruno Capolo.
Yeah, and you look at a guy like Nurkic. I mean, he's not like an athletic. I'm using quote, but he's damned athletic.
Oh yeah,
like he's
absolutely.
he's very skilled, and he's much more athletic than he looks.
And I guess for me, it's more like the 6'11" so athletic small forward.
Yeah.
And I felt like, teams were taking those guys, with like the 20th pick left and right, with the idea that like they were ever going to turn into something, and most of them did not. Yeah. So I don't know. I just my expectation is they will probably end up trading those picks rather than.
I agree. Kyle Pinnell asks, what is the ceiling of this team next year if we make the playoffs and get 3 lower draft picks but return the same players? Boy, it depends on what the rest of the league looks like.
Yeah.
It depends on... I don't think you're going to return the same players. I mean, this 15-man roster is not going to be the same right now that it is next year.
No.
So.
I mean, I don't know how... It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
I don't know it's going to be drastically different.
I think that there'll be a trade or so that alters the fundamental key, like rotation, that alters the rotation.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. For me, more than what is this team ceiling if they make the playoffs and add 3 players. For me, it's what I view next year as, like, next year is the year that tells you what this team really is. It's like you had 2 years ago where they were better than you thought. You had this year where they're worse than you thought. So I feel like next year is like that decides who they are.
3 years ago, they were better than we thought. 2 years ago, they were what we thought. And then last year, they were better than we thought again.
Right, what I'm saying, so...
And this year, worse than we thought. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
So not this year, but last year.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Gotcha.
So when they made the playoffs last year and everyone thought they were going to be the worst team, they were better. This year, they have been worse. Next year, I think that tells you maybe which team it is.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of variables in that question, Kyle. A lot of what-ifs on that. So I think I'm gonna punt and wait and see what the roster looks like before I make any predictions on that one. Next up from Stephen Reed, how are your guys' brackets looking this year? Who do you have winning it all?
For the 3rd consecutive season, I did not do an NCAA bracket, and to quote my friends at McDonald's, I'm loving it. I don't like doing... I mean, I don't watch college basketball, so basically it's me guessing.
Yeah.
And I just don't... I mean, I enjoy the games, but I just don't have the time to pay that kind of attention.
Yeah, so I have watched it's either 4 or 5 college basketball games like in the last 5 years, and they were all this year. They were all Florida State because Florida State is very good. But I did end up filling out my first bracket in probably 5 years because a friend of mine put together a tournament. So far I can keep my fingers crossed. I am perfect in my bracket. I have no idea why I have Kentucky winning it all. There's no rhyme or reason to 80% of my picks. I did it literally sitting in an airport at like 5 a.m. And I just picked it rapid fire. So. That's my expertise.
One thing I will say, I'm rooting against Northwestern because I hate all Northwestern journalism grads.
All right, very well. Next up from Nathan, what team under 500 right now has the best chance of winning a championship in the next 5 years?
Team under 500 winning a championship in the next 5 years.
Oh, come on, just go with Philly. Just say trust the process.
Yeah, no, it ain't going to be Philly.
I kind of want to say Minnesota because they have some really good young players, and they're going to get more young good players this year.
Sure.
Phoenix has some pretty good young talent, but
I'll do one for
You could say the Lakers because they're probably going to redo everything and all of a sudden start to draw premier free agents.
And they barely have a losing record, but I was going to say the Bucks just because they've got a fair amount of good young talent. I think that Giannis is at the level where he could be, a MVP caliber player.
Yeah.
And that's kind of typically what you need to win a championship. They're in the East, so it's easier.
Yeah.
I'll go with the Bucks.
Okay, I like that pick.
But I think Timberwolves is a good pick too because they do have a lot of young talent.
Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Zach LaVine was having a really good year before he got hurt. They've got some good players.
For me too, and I think I've mentioned this before, the Timberwolves are reaching Gonzaga level for me to where it's like every single year it's like, oh yeah, they're going to be good, and then they're really not. So like I'm to the point where like prove it.
Okay, I could see that. Rip City Revival, favorite movie or film series of all time? Whew. Boy, that's off the top of my head. That's tough to pick.
Well, I mean, for me, probably. I mean, Star Wars is an easy
film series.
For series.
Yeah.
Boy, that lady's got some penciled on eyebrows there. I mean, yeah, I guess I
just kind of separate. Like, I don't have a favorite. Well, my favorite movie is probably Royal Tenenbaums, which isn't really part of a series. But I also have like 20 favorite movies. You know what I mean? Like, I like a lot of movies.
You could call what's his name's movies all. I mean,
Wes
they're all
Anderson's?
kind of the same movies, so that you could do like you could claim a series through that. Royal Tenenbaums also one of my favorite movies too. I love it. Yeah, I guess I'll just say Star Wars.
Star Wars. Yeah, I would probably say that's.
I don't really ever. I just don't view things that way. You know, like I don't think
You're in the moment more. Yeah.
Well, and I just don't like when people again like even dumb things like what's your favorite color or what's your favorite food. It's like it
Depends on your mood.
yeah, exactly. It changes all the time.
Justin wants to know, of the remaining number of games, how many do you think we would have to win to make the 8th seed?
I will. Well, in keeping with the previous buy or sells, I will say 9 games to make it. Well, I'll say 8 games to make it because I think that's what they'll win, and I do think they'll get that 8th spot.
You do. Look at that.
I just think that they have a little more experience making the playoffs and getting there than the Nuggets do. I mean, and when I say I think they're going to make it, I mean, I think that 51-49. So
Sure.
Pretty much a coin flip.
Well, very quickly, I can tell you that the Nuggets have a pretty tough schedule immediately. Over the next 4 games, they face the Clippers, although you said the Clippers are traveling light. They're not
taking DeAndre Jordan or Blake Griffin to that game.
So they host the Clippers. Then they play a home-away 2-game series against the Houston Rockets. Then they host the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're at Indiana, so that's a tough stretch. They still have to play the Blazers at Portland, but then it lightens up quite a bit. Although they do end, they end with at Houston, New Orleans, OKC at Dallas, at OKC. So that is pretty tough. And then I think the next best contender for the Blazers, I really think it's down to the Blazers, Dallas, and Denver. And let's see what Dallas's closing stretch looks like. At Philly, at Brooklyn coming up, Golden State, Clippers, Toronto, OKC. That's pretty tough. And then they close with at the Clippers, San Antonio, at Phoenix, Denver, and at Memphis. That's a little easier. Boy, Dallas might almost be in the drive. Well, it's too close for me to call. Probably 8 to 9 wins. You've got to get at least that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really close. As opposed to last year where it seemed like there was a separation.
It was, what seed are you going to get?
Yeah. Now it could be any of those teams. None of it would surprise me. And really, if one team goes and wins like 5 games in a row, like that might be enough.
Yeah, really could.
To surpass everyone else.
Okay, next up from T. Muselli. I am on the East Coast, so I don't get to see a lot of games. What is Nurkic doing that Mason Plumlee wasn't, so to speak?
Scoring in the post.
Rebound. I mean, Mason had his moments,
shots,
but
defending,
steals. He's averaging like almost.
Yeah, I don't like quick hands or something, but yeah, he's got to be averaging like 3 steals since joining the Trailblazers.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
I think it's about 2, but yeah, he's been great. Well, and he just brings, as we've talked about, another dimension in so many ways. A threat in the pick and roll to roll, which I think has been huge.
Running pick and roll in the more traditional sense is definitely one of the things he's been doing that Mace did not.
Right, and then he still hits that mid-range shot, which Mason didn't do.
Which he needs to start, as I mentioned on Twitter, he needs to start shooting 3-pointers next.
And he's just has a presence. He's so huge that Mason didn't have in the post, both offensively and especially defensively, kind of a last line of defense. And all the while, he still is doing what Mason was able to do in that he's facilitating and getting a lot of assists. He's a good passer. So those are kind of, I guess the answer to your question is all of that.
Yeah, I mean he's basically playing again. Like he plays like a traditional big man with some flair for passing, whereas Mason played like a very untraditional NBA big man who also had a flair.
Who, by the way, Mason has been great for the Nuggets too, and
Mason's great. Period. I think he's really good.
Yeah.
But it's
just a better fit
as we talked about exactly. Like the skills that Nurkic brings, particularly with Damian and CJ on the team, it just fits better than what Mason brought.
Last up from Mark Bear, this team is so much better with Nurkic. What are the chances of a first round upset?
Slim to none.
Well, not only that, Mark, you're really getting the cart ahead of the horse, or whatever the expression is. I mean, we just dissected how difficult it's going to be and how close it's going to be for the team to even make the playoffs. I do appreciate your positivity. Clearly not a tanker. Mark is definitely on the playoff train.
Yeah.
But I can't even predict that this team with any authority will make the playoffs, let alone upset the two best teams in the NBA. Yeah. So I'm going to say very slim.
Yeah, and speaking of which, too, I don't know if you heard it, Joe, but when we were talking to Noah Vonleh last night in San Antonio, Noah Vonleh and Mo Harkless's lockers are together, or close to each other.
On the road.
And we were talking to Noah, and he had mentioned something about, I think maybe the Spurs were a team they could potentially play in the playoffs, and I heard Mo under his breath be like, "We got to make the playoffs first."
Yeah.
So I mean, the guys on the team are, I feel like a couple guys mentioned the Spurs as a potential playoff team last night, but they also know too that they still got it.
That's the least of their worries.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that'll do it from our humble abode here in Atlanta. We, as always, really appreciate you listening and appreciate you tuning into the show. So give us a follow on Twitter at @Chold for Casey, at Blazer Freeman for me. And please, again, access our content and our fine colleagues' content at blazers.com/forward center for Casey, OregonLive.com/Blazers for me. And we'll talk to you next week from the friendly confines of the Northwest in Portland, Oregon. Enjoy the, I guess, what do we got? 15 games left, so enjoy the next 3-4 games here. We'll talk to you then.
Watch Rasheed Wallace keep smashing the baseline. Go left, go right, 360 degrees. Here comes a paint, Kobe. Tipping and he's popping a three. Try and catch him coming down the court. Bonzi Wells, what a handle. It's amazing what he do for the sport. Damon Stoudemire saves the day, a.k.a. Mighty Mouse. Gonna show all of you scrubs how to play. What a show. Why the Lakers even want it with us, you know.
No one's ready to deal with us.